Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, where I empower you to develop sustainable habits, challenge society, and take messy action. I'm Christine, life balance coach and world champion ballroom dancer, and I believe that everyone has the power to create their very own life by design. The Recovering Perfectionist Podcast was created with a mission to encourage a life of abundance by finding peace and acceptance in our own imperfections and developing healthy self-love through sustainable habits and manifestation. It's time to align with the universe for the full human experience and redefine what it really means to be successful.
It's too good, the secret is out and wow.
We are back with another awesome episode of the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, and I have a very special guest for you today. I am actually meeting her for the very first time. This is a very rare occurrence on this podcast because I tend to have a lot of friends on my podcast that I already know. So we are going to build this friendship together and get to know Mari, who is a coach and a healer. And I have a feeling just from the few moments I've chatted with her that this is just the tip of the iceberg for this wonderful lady. Mari, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just a little backstory. Mari reached out because she heard the podcast, which is very exciting. It means it's getting around. And you connected with the message of what we're trying to do, and just understanding that, we're all trying to intentionally take this messy action, because otherwise perfectionism is going to keep us stuck, and you are, again, just like me, we work with clients, we're coaches, that kind of thing. So there was this common value. What episode resonated with you the most?
Oh, well, I've listened to a few of your episodes. I'm trying to remember specifically. I think the first one I found you on was with Kristen from Pursuit of Bliss.
Yes. Love Kristen.
She's
amazing.
Love Kristen. Yep. I'm friends with her back when she lived in Wilmington for that short period of time. And I really liked a couple of your other episodes. I actually listened to your one last week, specifically with the pastor that you had on about religion, because that was something that I love listening to people talk about, because I personally have my own journey with losing my religion. I grew up very Catholic. I grew up in going to Catholic school, church 2 times a week, prayer 4 or 5 times a day. And I went through this period in high school where I went through quite a bit of trauma, and actually completely just lost my religion. I was really confused. Everything felt like it had crumbled out from under my feet. And so I've spent, the past 10, 15, I don't know how many years, trying to rebuild that and figure out what it is that I actually believe in. And so that episode was really actually very interesting to me.
That's amazing. I had chills putting up that episode. Chris Hayden is a very good friend of mine. He actually married one of my best friends. So I met him through.
I love that.
Yeah. And when I met him, she told us, I'm marrying a pastor. And we're like, wait, what? This is someone who would not have married a pastor. And we joke about it all the time. And then we met him and we were like, oh, you're a pastor? It was so weird. And he says all the time, that's how people react to him. But it is the coolest thing, because what he's doing is he's breaking all these stereotypes of not just what a pastor is, but also what a pastor has to be. And he's changing so many lives by being so relatable to the people he's helping. And like he said, I have that clip that I promoted him with him discussing what he felt the church was supposed to be, and how we kind of veered away from that. And a lot of that is just, support and community and healing from trauma and unlearning and all of these things. And it becomes a lot of pointing fingers, you're not doing this right, and that's why people kind of stray away from it. I didn't grow up very religious. So when I put it on my Facebook, I was like, I can't believe I'm even having this conversation on my podcast, because I never thought I would until I met someone like Chris, who was able to make this conversation so much more accessible to everybody, you know? So
absolutely.
yeah, I'm so glad that resonated with you.
It really did. And like a side story, I actually dated this high school theology teacher once. And so I completely understand the type of person you mean when you say that, because that's how he was. And I was like, you're just blowing my mind right now with all of these things you're saying about like the church and religion and how it like actually connects to everything and everyone. And like the church that I grew up in, I don't think it was the church itself. It was more how I interpreted it. And that could have been, you know, like the age I was at and everything. And they're always talking about this old man in the sky, and he's the one who's in charge of everything. And it's up to God's plan. And it was really disempowering to me because it was kind of like, okay, I'm praying. I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. Like, why aren't my prayers happening and nothing's coming true? Like it was really hard for me to, I got really angry. I was like, I don't think this is how it's supposed to be working.
Right. It makes it feel very one-sided, and like you're not in charge of anything in your life. That's what veered me, the little bit of taste that I had of religion. I mean, just for past, I mean, I was baptized Catholic in France. That's where I was born. But my parents have all kinds of religions. My dad was Catholic. My mom is Jewish turned Christian. It's a whole thing. And so we ended up just, my brother and I, just kind of being raised, like not going to the church, but just having spirituality and just, you know, being guided well. And it worked out. Like we became very successful people. Like, you know, we felt like we found spirituality. We found the universe and energy. My dad introduced us to like The Secret and all of those kinds of things when we were really young. So we found guidance that we needed. I think a lot of people venture towards religion for guidance. But it was really interesting to grow up feeling like I had a choice, because everything that I saw my friends doing, I have to go to church. I don't want to go. You know, you need to surrender everything to God. You know, you have to sacrifice everything. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into, you know, life. And if you want to have dreams and build generational wealth and be an entrepreneur and all of those types of things, or hell, even being in a relationship, you're sacrificing some things, you know, you're compromising, I want to say. But at the same time, like you should be able, like the whole point, I teach manifestation, you know, Kristen teaches manifestation. You know, I teach about creating your life by design and, you know, how that all works into it. But we do it based on like the science of like habit building and sustainability. And, you know, like there's actionable steps you can take to create those changes. And yeah, I pray to God every night, and I have, you know, a spirituality around me that allows me to feel guided. And like, I see signs from the universe and angel numbers and all of these things, you know, whatever it is that you resonate with. But I think a lot of people are looking for that guidance, and that's what that, you know, collective community of religion serves for them. But I think a lot of people realize, oh, wait, this isn't what I actually wanted. I just wanted a community of people to feel guided.
Absolutely. And I'm not knocking it. Like my family is still very Catholic and religious and goes to church and everything. And everyone has their own path, and it's just finding what's the right fit for you. Like every church you go to has a little different taste of it. Totally. So it's finding the one that's the best fit for you, or if being spiritual and doing like your daily meditation stuff, if that's how you connect, then that's how you connect. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Totally. Absolutely agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's go back to the task at hand. I didn't expect to talk about that, but I really appreciate, actually, it's nice to hear feedback about past episodes, you know, just to see what's resonating with people. And also like now you're a guest. So like, if you're out there listening, like, you know, if you've got something to offer, like, you know, you could be the next guest. So Mari, tell me more about you, because you sent me over an email and you had all kinds of, you know, like different things in it in regards to what you do as a coach. And I was very impressed. Like your credentials are great. Your media kit is beautiful. Your pictures are awesome. Tell me about kind of like how how you got into doing this, like what inspired you to become a coach and a healer?
Yeah. So I really started my spiritual journey a long time ago, but that was never my plan to use it for my business, for my life path, or my purpose or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. So being an entrepreneur was something that I kind of always wanted. My plan was to honestly go into physical therapy school and open my own practice one day.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was my plan for so long. And I graduated college with a business degree. And the day after I graduated, I actually drove down. I'm from Michigan originally.
Oh.
I drove down to the Florida Keys, and I was planning on staying there for the summer to do a yoga teacher certification.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I finished my certification, I was really in this place of like, I do not want to be a physical therapist anymore. I know that that's not my path. That's not what's in alignment for me. I just don't want to do that. I felt really lost, but I was so in alignment that it was one of the happiest times of my life. So I was teaching yoga and cocktail waitressing, and
Wow.
I was just so happy.
Just growing and like new journey. So let me stop you real quick.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah. A lot of people are feeling this feeling, right? They feel it, we kind of do it in cycles. Some people call it burnout. Some people just call it feeling stuck. It just depends on where you're at with it. My question to you is like, why you said it, like, it just didn't feel right. There's a lot of red flags when you're trying to do something new, or I think a lot of people ignore the signs and they get too far down the road, I guess is what I'm getting at. And my question to you, because I felt this exact way when I, was accepted into this prestigious, program in, a college, one of the number one colleges. And I was so excited, and I was going to school for interior design that I don't even do today. And I got there and I thought this is going to be, what everyone told me it was going to be. And I checked every box, and then I was like, ugh, like I didn't want to be there. And I was very depressed, and I was like, what do I do? That was the first time I'd ever felt like I made a decision that didn't go according to plan. Like it didn't go, I didn't feel the way I thought I was going to feel. So what was the signs? Like, why did you all of a sudden feel like this wasn't the right path for you?
Well, I think it was hard for me because, like you, it was like I had already been on that path. I had taken a lot of the classes, the prep work, and it's like what everyone expected me to do. Mm-hmm. So when you have that expectation on you, and society expects you to do it, and your family and your friends, and breaking that news to them of like, I don't think this is for me anymore. That's really hard to do. I think the signs and flags that were coming to me is that when I envisioned that life for me down the road, when I knew I would be a physical therapist and what my day would look like and how I would be interacting with patients all day and these kind of different things, I felt unhappy. Like there was just a feeling in my gut, and it was like, it didn't feel good to me.
Right.
So, and that's really the feeling that I come back to when making a lot of my decisions is when I think about it, does it feel good or does it feel bad?
Right.
And if it feels bad, it's probably not in alignment for you. If it's like an uncomfortable but excited feeling, then like, yeah, you're growing and you're changing and you're doing something uncomfortable to push yourself. But it was just a feeling where it was like, this isn't what you're meant for. And I was getting different signs. I'm
getting chills, thinking of that, like the universe directly speaking to you, being like, this isn't your path. Like I've had so many moments in my life where I felt that, just that feeling, you just kind of like fork in the road, and it's like, which way do I go? And if you pay attention, like there are so many signs around you that are guiding you. Or even I get a lot of signs when I'm just living my life, going in the right direction. And I just see again, angel numbers. I see, spirit animals. I see, right now I'm currently creating a course and I'm seeing like everywhere, like this little tagline, that's describing kind of what my friend and I are doing in this course. And I'm like, oh my God, it just feels like we're on the right path, and I think so many people ignore those for the reason that you mentioned, which I'm glad you brought up, is expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it definitely takes a level of awareness to see those signs for you.
Yes.
And the expectations that people set on you, and that kind of comes back to a perfectionism thing, is like, you care so much about what other people think,
right,
that you want to make them happy and you want to live up to those expectations. So,
but that doesn't ultimately make you happy.
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes it will. I don't want to like, again,
sometimes it's your own expectations.
Exactly. Just like we said with the religion, like we don't, everyone's path is different. And so we won't knock any path at all. But I think a lot of what we're seeing, especially with millennials and Gen Z, that there was all of this expectation of how life was supposed to be lived, going to college, getting the degree, marriage, kids, white picket fence, the whole thing. And people are checking all these boxes, realizing, oh, wait, that's not what I actually want. And also we have more available to us now. So that makes it very different. Our parents didn't have this much available to them: online businesses, investing, cryptos, real estate, all of these different things were not as readily available as they are to us now.
Yeah. Even things like coaches.
Well, that's the
therapy,
thing. Yeah.
Those things were not
totally
available to them. I mean, it was something that if you went to therapy 50 years ago, you were weak or sick or
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no. So that absolutely. So now we're able to, like you said, raise our level of consciousness and awareness in order to feel like, oh, wait, I don't have to choose this path just because everybody else is. And so, so the expectations that people are putting on themselves, you were discussing, because people put expectations on us. We've got all kinds of family members. That's what's really hard for a lot of people to take that messy action. And that perfectionism quality comes out, but we put a lot of expectations on ourselves, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, I put a ton on myself. I don't feel like I have expectations really of anyone else on me anymore. And that's something that has taken a long time to let go of. But at that point in my journey, my parents were like, this isn't going to fly. You can't just, teach yoga and be a cocktail waitress. You have to go get a job. So
what was the next step for you? Yeah. So you got a job doing what?
Got a job. I became the marketing director of a nonprofit. And was using my business degree. It was something, again, that people were telling me I was really good at. And I just started following that path. It didn't take me a long time to figure out I was really unhappy there. I was working 60, 80-hour weeks. I was traveling a lot. I was doing a lot. There was a lot on my plate. When you work for a nonprofit, sometimes you usually end up taking on a lot more because there's small companies and different things. And it was exhausting. I had no work-life balance. Like, I was crying all the time. I got very sidetracked I went from like living in alignment after my yoga teacher training and being so happy and free to feeling really constricted. Still, I mean, this was like the path that people were kind of still expecting of me if I wasn't going to go on to physical therapy school. And I don't feel like I really had the time to figure out what I actually wanted, because it was just like, you have to do something now.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle, but I ended up pulling myself out of that after almost 2 years later. I quit that job and I started my own business. And that was a big step for me. But again, the universe was like, hold up, this still isn't right. What are you doing?
What was your business at the time? Was it coaching?
It was not. It was a women's online clothing store.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Totally different. Yeah. I've always been really into fashion. It was an eco-friendly clothing line. And it was just something that I was kind of like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do because I have to have a next step and I don't know what else to do. So I started that and I was doing freelance marketing on the side to kind of fill up my time. The week that my store was actually supposed to launch, though, Hurricane Irma hit my home in the Florida Keys and I lost my house, all my belongings. I ended up having to move back to Michigan, move back in with my parents.
Oh my God.
It was awful. Yeah. So that was another time in my life where it was just like another huge trauma, but ultimately that trauma led me here kind of thing. So that was hard. And that really set back it set back my store. It kind of took my heart out of it. It was like I had grown so much again after kind of processing that trauma that my heart was not in it. And I ended up trying for a little while with it and forcing it. And then eventually I ended up selling it, which was the best move I could have made.
Okay.
So
you've had you're like a cat with 9 lives. This is like,
I just keep making new businesses.
Yeah. But you know what though? Here's the thing. You are not like that. That's not a unicorn decision of you to do. Like every entrepreneur goes through this. I was just talking to my business coach the other day and he was talking about the fact that he's like, you guys don't even realize how many businesses I've created. I've done this and this. And he started listing off like 7 different businesses. That even if we did it for like 2 weeks or, 2 months or a year and a half or whatever, like it counts. And it was an idea that we, maybe bought a domain for and, and started doing the research and
created that LLC and invested money. Yeah.
Bought the product or, started reaching out to other people to help us with it. But it's, that is something that I think we are trying to discuss more of. I was having this conversation yesterday about how the in-between, my colleague and I who are creating this course, we do live trainings in our group on Facebook. We have about like 800 people in there. And it's really awesome because it's all about burnout and entrepreneurship and, all that kind of stuff. And it ties right in with my podcast. But we were discussing how people don't discuss like all of a sudden they're burnt out and then they're recovered. And we don't talk about the in-between or vice versa. Like you are great and then you burn out. How did you get there? And I think it reminds me a lot of that's how society works, where it's like, Justin Bieber was a nobody and then you turn around and he's a somebody. And it's like, but nobody talked about how he got there. Do you know what I mean? Until documentaries started coming out because he got so famous. But like all of these things is like, we don't talk about the middle. It's just like, we just show up online. Like we're this like perfect, that's why we had to start doing Instagram versus reality. Cause it's not real. Everyone had their multiple businesses. Everybody had their multiple failures. And some of the successes that you see, that are like, oh my God, this business is blowing up. Some of them have been going for like 5+ years before they're even a known business. And it takes, I remember saying someone was starting a business and they're like, yeah, I didn't get my first client for like 6 months. You know what I mean? Their first client, like they didn't start making any money for 6 months in the business. And that's actually fine. Some people don't make money the first year.
And it's hard to keep pushing through and have the motivation and courage to like keep going after that first week or that first month. If you don't have a client, it's hard to like make that into motivation to keep showing up.
Yeah. The resiliency. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a great lesson for everyone because it's totally okay to start over and to begin again and know that like, okay, I'm not on my path, but I'm going to figure out what that looks like and what that is to me. And this is just another stepping stone that gets me one step closer to what that is for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So where were we at in the story?
I was doing a lot of freelance website design, branding, and I did that for a couple of years. I knew there was something else I was supposed to be doing. I was feeling so frustrated because I could not figure out what that looked like or what it was. And I really just dove into my own personal growth and development. I was working with a coach. I was working with doing like different healing programs, doing a lot of trauma work. And as this developed, my spiritual practices kept growing stronger. I was going through another spiritual awakening. A lot of stuff was happening on my own personal side of things. And so I eventually got to the point where I knew it was supposed to be something spiritual, which was really outside of the box for me and uncomfortable to deal with because that was just something I didn't normally share with anyone. It was usually very private to me. Even like my family and friends, it took me a long time to open up to a lot of my good friends even and tell them like, oh yeah, this is spiritual, or I can see this ghost over here. Like,
right.
That's
too,
not something.
Too woo-woo for most people.
Yeah.
Totally.
I kind of got to this phase where I was going through like modality after modality. I was looking at astrology really strongly for a few weeks, and then I'd be really looking at chakras, and really, I was just bouncing all over the place. I finally found my way to the Akashic Records, and that's when everything shifted for me. So I opened my own Akashic Records for the first time, and it was like floodgates opening up to me. So much information came through. I was getting signs left and right. And I, for the first time, was like, I found it. I think I can do this. I'm not fully sure, but I'm going to try. And
so for those who don't know, can you explain a little bit of what that is?
So the Akashic Records, if you're not familiar with them, is a living energy. It's on the 5th dimension, and it's something that is constantly moving, constantly changing and transforming. Basically, it is a record of our soul. So it houses the information of every soul, including their thoughts, feelings, experiences, past lives, present life, future possibilities, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
To make it more tangible, I kind of like to think of it as Google for your soul, but a lot of people explain it as a library. So every person kind of has their own book, and that makes it something that's a little more tangible to see what it is. But ultimately, it's like this space that allows you to connect with your soul self, the essence of who you are, and really takes the ego away, the fear and scarcity and judgment that comes with that, so that you can be connected with your true self and get information that really is like a roadmap and a blueprint of what your soul is and who you are.
Right. That's amazing. I love that. So talk to me about kind of your business. Now, I kind of like this whole expectations theme we've got going here, because it is exactly where I think perfectionism stems from, is expectation. Like, why do we put expectations on ourselves? Because other people have already put them on us, or society has put them on us. So it's more about all of these things that we're carrying that really don't belong to us, that need to be removed in order for us to figure out, how we can grow and blossom. And like you said, you tried a lot of things, you finally found something that worked. But I think that's the key, is just, again, it's the messy action, trying a lot of things, knowing that they're not all going to be your thing. And that is something so difficult for perfectionists, because I think they feel, I'm definitely still a recovering perfectionist, but I think we feel like there's like with the expectation and you trying a lot of things, it brings down your credibility. You know what I mean? So you're like, so people who are trying to help you or support you, like, for example, you were starting this clothing store, right? So they're going to say, oh yeah, she's got her business degree, started her business, is so great, I'm going to go support her, and everybody blows you up on Facebook. And then all of a sudden you realize that's not for you. And now you want to be a coach or do something different. And so like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, okay, now Is she, you know what I mean?
Now what's happening? Yeah.
Now what's happening? Like it brings down like the credibility of like us, one person going for it, and that they pick a path and they run with it, and that's their thing.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that that's becoming more and more common for, especially for millennials and Gen Z to change their path multiple times, because again, we are kind of running in this messy action and trying a lot of things because we can with very low risk. And back in the day, you couldn't do that, right? With our parents' generation.
You couldn't do anything online. You couldn't run a business that way, or with social media. So it was definitely like you had to, do like a brick and mortar. And so there was a lot more investment back then.
Right. You had to get a degree in what you were doing, right? Most things required a degree. Now you don't have to have a degree to run an online business. You can do a ton of research. You can be very successful. And I know people who have 0 degrees making multiple 7 figures,
Exactly.
And that I think is very, very cool for people to be able to feel like they can build something on their own, and not feel like they have to have a degree in order to do that, because some people can't throw themselves into debt and go to school for 4 years and do all these things. Like that's very difficult. Talk about expectation, that goes kind of back to that. A lot of people are still going to university because they feel like either that is what is expected of them, or that is their, I don't know what else to do right now. Yeah. So I might as well go to college. Right.
Yeah. And that was kind of how I feel like things have unfolded for me up until, more the past couple of years, until I started doing this work, because I was really still trying to figure things out and nothing felt right to me until I found this. And so I feel like for anyone listening who feels like they're in that situation, when you find the right thing, you'll know it's the right thing, and it might just be the right thing for a couple of years, and that's okay. But
that's powerful. I like that you said that. We're going to stop and acknowledge that. And maybe the right thing for a couple of years, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, right? We were just talking earlier about, hitting that next level and becoming that next level version of yourself.
Right.
And sometimes when you do that, what you have been doing is no longer aligned with you.
Right.
So
you
talk
have to find
what's right for that.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the feeling, because before we talked about the feeling of something that didn't feel aligned, right? You started, you went to, I'm sorry, it was therapy. You were a therapist. No,
I was doing the marketing.
No, right at the beginning.
I wanted to be a physical therapist.
Therapist. That's what I was like. Yes. I was going to say occupational because I have a best friend who's an
physical therapist. Yeah.
Yeah. You were doing physical therapy, and that just didn't resonate with you. And so, but we discussed a little bit about what that meant, because so many people say that, well, that just, it didn't feel aligned. Well, what does that mean? And you described the feelings and the signs and the thinking about the future and realizing you weren't happy and all of these things. So now you felt like once you found this, this felt aligned. How was that feeling different? Like, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh, it was 100% different. Like there was so much. For days after I did my first Akashic records, I sat out on my back patio and I just kind of sat there in awe. And I was like looking at everything around me, and I felt so in the present moment and so grateful and clear. Like I felt like I finally had clarity on what I was supposed to be doing and what my path looked like to me. But aside from all of that, it still feels like I'm living more alignment every time I do a session with someone. I just feel so happy. I'm like, I could just do this all day long. I love it so much. And not necessarily that things are going to like be easy for you, but it just feels like things are flowing and things are moving and I don't feel stuck. And so I feel like that was a big part of it. I mean, you'll still have some setbacks and you still might get in phases where you do feel like a little stagnant, but it's just every time I do a session, it's amazing. And I love it so much.
It fills you up. You feel fulfilled.
It does. It feels so fulfilling. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
that's amazing. I think it's really important to share, the details of those feelings, because I think so many people hear these, buzzwords, aligned, stuck. Like this is great, but like burnout, we don't know what these words mean
Yes.
until we describe it. And then most people are like, oh, that's me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Yeah.
that. And it's like, yep, that's what's happening to you, you know? And so thanks for sharing that. So, what have you learned for those who are still, whether it be, we started the conversation with religion, whether they feel expectations to keep following a religious path that their family put them on, or a path to college, or just kind of like the society programming of expectation. What would you say to those people now that you've kind of come through all of this growth, about following other people's expectations and also setting your own expectations for yourself? Like, what do you wish you would have known then?
For dealing with other people's expectations, I kind of wish I would have had a little more awareness of it and started taking the steps to remove those. So what I did is I started, not reaching out to friends or to family to get validation, which is ultimately validation that I was looking for inside myself. And so like with starting my new business, when I started my new business, I actually didn't tell my family, which was a little bit of a block for a while for me, but it allowed me to get to a point where I was so much more comfortable with it and confident in it. And I wasn't taking their opinions on, well, will this actually work? Maybe you should just stick with what you're doing because we know you're good at it. And is this actually like a feasible thing that you can be doing?
Right.
So that was something that I had to do for me, and that might not be everybody's path, but I had to do that to get to a place where I was more comfortable with myself before I could kind of start taking that judgment from people who are really close to me, because it does impact us so much. We like to sit here and say that, if your sister or brother or your family or your best friend are telling you that you shouldn't be doing something, it's not going to impact your mindset, because it is. Right. So that was kind of something I had to do, getting to a place where you are confident enough and okay with taking a different path and straying off of what you are expected is really important. And part of that might just be taking the leap. If you are sitting in a place where you're scared of what other people are going to think of you, you just need to remember that at the end of the day, whose opinions really matter. Like, what matters is what you think of yourself. And there probably is a couple of people who you care what they think about you, but it really shouldn't fill more than like a 1 inch by 1 inch piece of paper, that list of names.
Right. Well, I think what matters is what you think about yourself, but also how you feel as well.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, those expectations from the inner circle, I like to call it the inner circle, basically your parents, your spouse, if you have one, siblings, and a couple best friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really your inner circle. And if those people are not seeing your vision, and sometimes our vision isn't fully developed. And like you said, I think that's great what you said about keeping it to yourself until it's, letting kind of the work speak for itself instead of trying to sell the idea and get validation from the family. I've been learning that in the last few years as well, just kind of, hibernating is what I like to say, going in, doing my work, changing my business around, rebranding, refreshing, doing different things. And until I have something to say that needs to be, either shared or supported, I keep it on the down low, because I don't want those, opinions clouding the creative process.
Yeah. And it's different when you're doing it with someone who's like, you want to bounce ideas off of and just go and voice through things with them. But you need to make sure that whoever you're doing that with is really open-minded, and their main purpose is to support you and not like put their own opinions on you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was something that was just so important for me when starting this business, because coming from that religious background, it was harder stepping into something that was spiritual and not tangible by any means. I mean, the work that I do with clients has completely to do with energy, and that's not something you can physically see or touch.
Right.
So to a lot of people, it might not be something that they can quite comprehend at the time or until they experience it themselves.
Very cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Mari, it has been an absolute pleasure to get to know your story, and just kind of like, learn the lessons from your struggles. When we're in the struggles, it sucks. It's the worst ever. Like you said, traumas, stuckness, depression, all the things come up. But now you are somebody's survival guide, and you're there to help people in a way that nobody else can, because nobody's been through what you've been through. And so it's amazing. It's hard, especially as entrepreneurs, when we're trying to find the thing that we're going to, leave our mark on this world, or, how we can serve others, or how we can feel fulfilled. And sometimes that's not all in the same thing, which is even more complicated. But I think, in moments like this, when you can reflect on the journey that you've had, and your journey is far from over, if anything, it's just beginning, to be able to share, your client work and all of those things, I think it's amazing. How we're going to put all of your links in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Mari, talk to her, work with her, but how can people get a hold of you?
Yes, you can definitely find me on Instagram at Mari Lee B, or go to my website, which is marilee.com.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here and for sharing your, all of your personal journey with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. It was really fun talking with you, and I hope everybody got something out of this podcast that was what you needed to hear today.
Thank you so much for listening to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast. I'm Christine, and if this episode resonated with you or spoke to you in any way, please feel free to share. I absolutely love hearing from you guys and your thoughts about the topics based on your experiences. And also, if there's anything you want me to talk about, just screenshot this episode and share it on social media with your comments. Your feedback really helps me to curate episodes that best serve you. If you have time, I would greatly appreciate if you could leave a review wherever you're listening to this episode, whether on Apple or Spotify or any other platform. I'm wishing you a blessed week ahead, and remember, perfection doesn't exist. Take messy action. Healthy habits keep us balanced, and you are enough.